Hello everyone, my name is Paul Third, and hopefully this week on Mixing Wednesdays I'm going to see if I can save you some time on your... How cheesy was that, by the way?
Why did I do that?
And this week I'm going to show you 4 plugins that hopefully may make your mixes easier and a little bit quicker at the same time. So first off, the cleanup, right? Cleaning up resonances, right? So what I have always done for a long time is I normally have FabFilter Pro Q3. It used to be Waves F6, then I moved to FabFilter Pro Q3. Now what I do with FabFilter is I do all the boring stuff. So every track, genuinely every track, I would take FabFilter Pro Q3 and I would like boost a very narrow notch, and I would just scope through and find the resonances that I didn't like. Right, okay, bang, take them down, and listen and take them down myself. Now, Mastering with the Mix came out with reso last week, which in my opinion is essentially everything that I was doing in FabFilter, but better and also much quicker. Now what reso does is it focuses solely on resonance suppression. Now all you've got to do is load an instance on each track, play the track in its entirety so it can hear all of the track and be able to pick up any resonances that come out of the track and hear how the resonances may build up over the entire length of the track. Now the great thing about reso is that if you do feel like the suppression is not enough or it is too much, what you can do is you can link the input and output together, so you can treat reso exactly like you would any compressor, but if you bring the input down, then it will compress less. If you give reso more input, it will compress more. And another great thing about reso is that you could set where you tell it to listen for resonances. So for example, by default, it'll only listen to resonances after 500 Hz. You can change that and you can get it to listen to basically the full spectrum. And another great thing as well in the settings is that you can also limit how deep it suppresses by default. So again, you can have -5, -10, -15. Now, many people will probably be screaming at me, Paul, I can do this with FabFilter. Why would I buy this? Why would I not just stick with FabFilter, right? Again, think about time, right? Say you've got 50, 60, even 30 tracks, and you want to listen to the tracks and take out all the nasty resonances before compression. That's going to take you time, because FabFilter is not listening for you. You've got to find the frequencies, and then once you've found them, you've got to pick your cue. You've then got to select a dynamic EQ. You've then got to figure how much you want it to dip, where reso does all that for you. You know what, guys? I'm just going to let you hear what it's done, right? So you can hear for yourself. I liked what it did, move on, right? Like what everybody says in the comments, and you'll hear all the time. If it sounds good, it sounds good. I prefer reso with it on than without it. Now, in modern day audio mixing, whenever you hear harshness and smooth, somebody's going to say, what about soothe? Now, the reason that I prefer to have one plugin doing resonance suppression and then another plugin taking out any harshness after compression is because I do not want one plugin over processing and doing too much. Now, the issue with over processing, especially with soothe, is that it could start to sound unnatural. So for example, if you were to get soothe to deal with the resonance suppression and you were getting it to deal with the harshness, and you were also getting it to take out any mud as well. It's a lot, and when Soothe is doing too much, you can hear the processing and it does start to sound unnatural to my ears. Now the benefit of reso is that it's cleaner than Soothe, okay? It's very, very clean. In a sense, I suppose you can say that they are quite right when they say that reso is kind of mastering grade, as it doesn't really affect your phase that much at all. So in my opinion, when it comes to focusing on your most kind of prominent, nasty resonances that can build up in your mix, reso is the best tool for the job because it's the cleanest and it's what it's built to do. Where Soothe is an all-rounder. Soothe is constantly listening and suppresses in real time. But I don't want it to focus on resonances. I only want it to focus on harshness, which to me is the beauty of the plugin. I'm focusing on the part of the plugin where I feel it does the best job. So what I'm going to do now is I'm now going to let you hear the instances where I used Soothe just to take out any harshness. And for me, Soothe is just doing that final little clip off the edge. It's just kind of nicely shaving off that little bit of harshness, and it's not having to work too hard as well, so it still sounds natural. Let's hear how that sounds.
Honey, I've gone all out and I've been broken in. When it pours on me, I can soak it all in. Honey, I've gone all out and I've been broken in. When it pours on me, I can soak it all in.
Right, so there you go. This is all entirely subjective, but in my opinion, 2 plugins, you've completely cleaned up your tracks. Everything sounds nice and smooth, and then from there, you could then start EQing without worrying about bringing up any of that harshness with your EQ. And in terms of the EQ and making your workflow a little bit easier and a little bit faster, we have the Sonible Smart EQ. Now, the reason I love Smart EQ is because it's an AI-powered EQ, which listens to a segment and matches that to an algorithm whilst also balancing that with more resonance suppression and removes any unwanted notches. So reso and Soothe have covered the resonance suppression and also the harshness after the compression, which allows Smart EQ to focus more on the tonal balance and frequency clashing via the grouping. Now, the way that I use Smart EQ is I set groups for everyone. So I've got like a drum group, a guitar group, vocal group, maybe an instrument group. And the great thing with the grouping is that you can set priorities for frequency clashing and also choose how dynamic the processing is as well on your individual processing and also as your group processing as well, which in my opinion allows the mix to breathe a little bit more and keep the mix sounding quite natural still. You can group drum tracks, guitar tracks, vocal tracks, and send the bus instances to a main mix group where you can prioritize the mix as a whole. The only problem with Smart EQ is that it can kind of dull the tracks because it is a spectral balance. It's completely tonally balanced. Like what I did with reso, I'll just stick it on every single track, let it do its thing, process, I'll listen to the entire track, I'll then like bypass things in and out to see if it's needed. And guess what? In my opinion, it was needed. And I like the sound of it better And again, I just went with it, right? All the grouping and stuff like that, I just went with it. Here is what Smart EQ added to all of the tracks.
Honey, I've gone all out, and I've been broken in. When it pours on me, I can soak it all in. Honey, I've gone all out, and I've been broken in. When it pours on me, I can soak it all in. I'm alive, and my blood is pumping like a gaslight. I'm alive, and my blood is pumping like a gaslight. Got an edge I'm holding, got an edge I'm holding. I got a rugged heart, I got a body made of blades. I'm gonna keep them sharp like a pocket knife. Oh, gotta take it hard, gotta handle every day. I'm gonna keep them sharp like a pocket knife. Yo!
Now, what many people would do is they would take their nice, clean, spectrally balanced mix and they would then start comparing it to references, and then from there they would then start to have an idea of kind of the certain tweaks that they could make. Now, what if I was to tell you, to save you some time, there are a set of plugins that you can use that can do all of that work for you. Now, what Bassroom and Mixroom do is they analyse your audio and give you EQ suggestions to match to a set target genre, like an average sound of a certain genre, and give you EQ recommendations that you can intuitively play about with to get closer to your desired end result. And what's even cooler is that you can import your own references so it can give you EQ suggestions that you can use for your master bus. Now, in terms of what you're going to hear, I didn't have any reference tracks that I could think of to import and couldn't be bothered. Again, time is money, time is money. So I just set my target genre to indie rock, I let it do its thing, and honestly guys, just listen, especially the bass room, just listen to what it does to the track.
Honey, I've gone all out, and I've been broken in. When it pours on me, I can soak it all in. Honey, I've gone all out, and I've been broken in. When it pours on me, I can soak it all in. I'm alive, and my blood is pumping like a gaslight. I'm alive, and my blood is pumping like a gaslight. Got an edge I'm holding, got an edge I'm holding. I got a rugged heart, I got a body made of blades. I'm gonna keep them sharp like a pocket knife. Oh, gotta take it hard, gotta handle every day. I'm gonna keep them sharp like a pocket knife. Yo!
And there you have it. I'm just going to say it now. Bassroom, mwah, mwah, mwah. Just fucking buy it, eh? Just buy it. It's unbelievable, right? Low end is very, very hard for a lot of people. But to me, the way it focused on the low end, and I just went with its suggestions, and I was just like, yes, that sounds more like what I hear on records. I was like, instantly, I'm like, well, there's my low end. And what's interesting is, in terms of the mix room, it only had like one part of the mid-range. And it was actually taken out like kind of the low mid-range. And what's really interesting is that it actually rings true, because if you've watched me versus the Sonible AI, one thing that we did pick up on that I had to fix with Gullfoss is a video where I'm using Gullfoss as well. At the end, very, very end of the mix, I had to take out a lot of kind of low mid kind of mud that was in the mix. That was something that kind of a tonally spectrally balanced mix gives you. Maybe just a little bit too much low mids, and it took out those low mids. It could hear the track, it knew what it wanted to hear. It just genuinely was like, right, okay, yeah, this mix sounds pretty good. but I'll take out that kind of low mid and it does it for you. In my opinion, what all of this does is it allows me to focus on the song, which is the most important, which is where you're going to get the best out of that mix. You can focus on what the song needs, you can focus on automation, you can focus on effects. You can just start listening to the song without sitting there going, did I put too much technica in that snare? Oh, fucking, is there a bit too much DI in that bass? You can think about automation, effects, depth, reverb, delays, you know, the width of the track. You can focus on the song itself and see how it pushes and pulls and just really focus on the song, which in the end is the most important thing. So guys, I know I did say, obviously, time is money, and this video has dragged on a little bit, but I do think it's very important and to invest a little bit of time if it's going to save you time in the future. And also guys, if you have any plugins that you use that you feel has really quickened up your workflow, and kind of, again, if you were using 5 plugins in a chain and you're now only using 1 plugin and it's really sped up your workflow, let me know in the comments down below as well. And we as a community could start sharing tips with each other, so in the end we could start making quality productions and mixes and masters much quicker. My name is Paul Third. If you like the video, eh? If you've not subscribed, just subscribe, eh? And I will see you again next week on Mixing Wednesday.